Welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. My name is Tony Roy. I'm the host of this weekly podcast. This week, I'm recording the podcast on site at the PPA Slam event here in Atlanta, Georgia at Lifetime in Peachtree Corners. It's been a great week of being able to interact with a lot of players. Many of them are students. Interact with pro players who I've known over the years and I've met at this tournament. Watch a lot of pro play, watch a lot of amateur play, watch even junior pro play, and see what's going on out there, see what's working, what's not working, get kind of, caught up on everything that's happening in the sport, because you're able to see, how the amateurs are navigating the sport as well as how the pros are trying to figure out the best way to solve the puzzle at their level of play. And then take those lessons into our videos and our teaching and our coaching and our trainings. We have a training coming up now at the end of May covering lobs and how to deal with lobs. So if you'd like to join us for that, please, I'll put a link down in the show notes, or you can go to betterpickleball.com and there's a link there where you can find that training. Also we have the 50 Plus Academy, where we're implementing strategies that are appropriate for all levels of pickleball, all types of pickleball, and also strategies that are specific to 50 plus play. But this is part of the work that we do as coaches, is coming to events like this to see exactly what's going on out there with the sport of pickleball. And what I want to talk about in this podcast, in this episode of the podcast, has to do with redlining. And I saw a lot of it on the courts, both amateur and pro, and I'm going to focus on one example in particular. But, what I'm talking, redlining is the idea that getting too amped, getting too excited, getting too far over on one side. And if you want to think about it this way, think about it like, a car has a red line. If you've seen a car that has a tachometer in it that shows your revolutions per minute, they always have that red section on there. Basically, it's like a warning that says, don't redline, don't go into the red zone, at least not for an extended period of time, because you'll burn the engine up. And we, as human beings, we're not dissimilar in the sense that, we have a certain amount of bandwidth that we can handle, that our brains can handle. And we can redline it sometimes, so we can take it into that level of stress and anxiety and pressure for short bursts at a time. But, staying there for a long time, can hurt us. And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of the podcast. And then at the end, I'll give you a couple of ideas that might help you deal with that, if that's something that you deal with, or if you see a friend of yours that has this. And what I'm surprised at isn't that it happens, right? It's going to happen. What I'm surprised at is I'm getting the sense that it's actually something that players are affirmatively trying to do. In other words, it's one thing to say that it's accidental, meaning or just something that happened, right? So that's just how I'm programmed, right? And so I behave that way, but that's what I'm used to. It seems to me that this is something that's being trained out there, something that's being taught. And what makes me think that is I've watched several junior matches, junior PPA matches, and shout out to the PPA. I think it's wonderful what they're doing. They let the junior players play on the same court that the pros play on. There's two courts that the pros play on. They have championship court and grandstand court, and they had the gold medal matches of the juniors on the grandstand court, while at the same time that the semifinals for the pro players are going on the championship court. So that was really cool to see. But I'm watching these junior players play, and very over the top, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, a lot of some trash talking between them, which I didn't see anybody correcting, which is unfortunate, because I think that's something that should be corrected at that age, or else, it gets worse. But the other thing I saw was a lot of basically, right here, right now, let's go, we got it, let's go, come on, right here, right now. A lot of that kind of talk. And again, these are children, these are teenagers and children that are basically so amped up. I mean, there's 14-year-old stroke out there, waiting to happen. And so leads me to believe that there's some coaching going on out there, there's some training going on out there that has this idea that you're supposed to be 120% all the time. And that's just not something that's feasible. And I'll work through that in a second with you, just a couple of different ideas. So it's a couple of scenarios so you can see how it really doesn't work to your advantage. Where it really stood out was there was a really excellent quarterfinal match. If you like pro pickleball, it's a really interesting match to watch between Federico Staxrud, Hayden Patrick, and J.W. Johnson and C.J. Klinger. It's quarterfinals, but it was basically finals level match. And back and forth match, really good rallies, really good battles by everybody. They're in game 3, so they've split games 1 and 2. They're in game 3. It's roughly tied. I can't remember the exact score, but it's somewhere around 6-6-ish. And Federico Saxrud hits there's a really interesting rally. You know, he hits a good shot, and you know, he goes, you know, gets really excited about it, right? Red lines, if you will. The problem is that he stays redlined. And so whether it's the next rally or a couple rallies later, he's serving, he's serving for the first time, serves it into the net. And when I say he's serving for the first time since that point, so since he got amped up. So he serves that into the net. 1 or 2 rallies later, he misses a return of serve, right? Critical game 3, top 10 player, missing shots that he shouldn't miss. Why? Because he redlined. And because he was stuck in redline, like his accelerator foot was stuck down, right? And he was just revved up too high. And so it cost his performance. Now, maybe they still lose the match. I can't tell you that. But I can tell you for sure that his redlining in that match affected his ability to perform in that situation. So what I want you, let's work through a couple scenarios now, and let's kind of play with it a little bit and see how it affects you. So remember, redlining is, you're just super amped, right? You're just like, whoa, let's go, you know, like just really super amped up. And so if you think about being amped up, right, you have no bandwidth left, right? You're already at the extreme. So you have nowhere to go. There's no cushion. And so you can see a situation where, you know, you actually have a really nice rally, you know, where like it's a fantastic rally, back and forth. All of a sudden you have a great save and you do a great thing. You don't feel it, right? Because you're going, and I've seen this out here where players are going like, whoa, after a missed 4th shot or a missed 3rd shot, or just like nothing rallies, right? I mean, nothing's happened, but they're acting like it was like the rally of the, you know, the millennium. And so when you have the rally of the millennium, where are you going to go from there? You know, you have no cushion, you have nowhere to go, nowhere to rev the engine, right? That you can go to in a good situation. And perhaps more importantly, you have nowhere to go in a bad situation. Okay, because you'll face adversity on a pickleball court. The pros do for sure. You will in your matches if you're playing at level. You're going to be challenged, and you're supposed to be challenged. That's what you signed up for. And so if you have no bandwidth, no cushion left in your revving, if you will, because you're redlined, how are you going to handle it when things go sideways on you, right? When things turn adverse, you can't, because you got nowhere to go. And so this redlining idea, this idea that you're going to redline all the time, you're always going to be 110%, is just not a sustainable way of engaging with the sport. It's not healthy for you. It's not good for you from just a psychological health standpoint, right? Physiologically, either to be all amped up all the time, not good for you. But the kicker is this: you're not even going to get better performance out of it. Okay, what you want to learn how to do is how to regulate that tachometer, how to regulate yourself from green to yellow to red in your emotion state, right? And that's a process of time. And I would suggest to you that the tip I want you to walk away from this episode with is start with recognition. And what I mean by that is notice if you're redlining. Okay, so if the other team like misses a nothing shot and you're like, whoa, let's go, you know, like that, probably redlining. There's no call for that in that situation, you know, and so you're so amped up that you're releasing it in ways that objectively don't make any sense, because you're treating that the same as you would the rally of the millennium, and that objectively, right, makes no sense. So the first step would be recognition of feeling redlining all the time, and then you're going to work on some techniques, some breathing techniques. We have another episode where we cover some breathing techniques. You can Google that, just pickleball therapy breathing techniques, and you can find that episode. If I can find it for you, I'll put it in the show notes, but in case it's not there, you can find it. Work on some breathing techniques between rallies, and think of like the time between your rallies as a moment to let the foot off the gas, if you will. Okay, so in the rally, maybe, you know, at first it's going to be hard because you're going, right? And so your brain starts going, everything gets excited, and you're just, let's go, and you're revving too much. Between rallies, let go of the gas, right? Let that tachometer come down, let the engine unwind a little bit. Breathing techniques are a good way of doing that. Releasing the paddle from your playing hand is another technique. Sends a signal to the brain that everything is fine, you know, and they're not in danger, everything's good. So those are things that you can do, but be mindful of redlining And be mindful of, if you have a significant other who plays pickleball in red lines, you're a good friend of yours, red lines, things like that, share this episode with them. It's a way for them to maybe come at the game a little differently, avoid that redlining that's negatively affecting them personally and also negatively affecting their play. So that's this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope the sound quality was good enough from the on-site location here. Remember, we have that upcoming training if you want to join us for that. We also have the 50 Plus Better Pickleball Academy, where we have, you get basically CJ, myself, and other amazing coaches over 50 showing you tips and strategies that are specific to 50 plus plays. So if you're a 50 plus pickleball player, you love the sport, I'll put a link in the show notes where you can join us inside the academy. That's that for this week's podcast. As always, if you have a minute to rate and review it, really appreciate you doing that. If you think this podcast was helpful to you, share it with your friends. Remember, particularly those who you think are redlining, your husband, your wife, your significant other, your brother, sister, whoever. Share this podcast with them, and maybe it'll help them start on a path away from redlining and a more balanced approach to their play. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you on the next episode of Pickleball Therapy. Be well.